I'm Scarlett, 36, female. I live with my husband, Ethan, in a quiet suburban home we designed together, a sanctuary we built while navigating the toughest years of our lives. I'm a graphic designer and he's a civil engineer. We're planners, people who believe that with enough effort and love, you can build the life you want. But for nearly a decade, the one thing we wanted more than anything, a child, was the one thing we couldn't build on our own. After years of heartbreak, we were finally on the verge of holding our baby, thanks to a wonderful surrogate. This story is about how my greatest moment of joy was almost stolen by the person who should have been happiest for me, my own sister. And it's about the devastating secret I was forced to reveal to take my life back. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The journey to parenthood is supposed to be natural, a beautiful and exciting path. For Ethan and me, it was a war. A quiet, clinical war fought in hushed doctors' offices, sterile labs, and the lonely silence of our bedroom after another negative test. We were two people deeply in love, with a stable home and so much affection to give, yet my body refused to cooperate. The diagnosis came after 2 years of trying, unexplained infertility. It's a label that sounds simple, but feels like a cosmic joke, a problem with no name and no clear solution. We tried everything: timed cycles, hormone treatments that turned me into a stranger in my own skin, 3 rounds of IUI, and then 2 gut-wrenching, financially draining cycles of IVF. Each failure felt like a death in the family, a ghost of a child we would never meet. Our friends started having their second, even third babies. Family gatherings became a minefield of well-intentioned but painful questions. When are you two going to get started? You're not getting any younger. Each comment was a fresh stab into a wound that never healed. Through it all, Ethan was my rock. He held me when I cried, reminded me of my strength when I felt broken, and never once let me believe this was my fault. "It's our journey, Scarlett," he'd say, his hand over mine. "We're in this together, no matter what." My sister, Olivia, was a different story. She's 4 years younger than me and has always lived her life in the spotlight, whether it was real or self-created. As an event planner, her entire world revolved around aesthetics, social climbing, and being the center of attention. She'd offer sympathy, but it always felt shallow, performative. "Oh, Scar, I'm so sorry, that's just awful," she'd say, before immediately pivoting to a story about a lavish wedding she was planning or a dramatic fight with her husband, Liam. My pain was just a brief, gray intermission in the vibrant movie of her life. Liam was a good man, a quiet software developer who seemed completely mesmerized by Olivia's whirlwind energy. He was kind and stable, and I often wondered how he put up with her constant need for drama. He and Ethan got along well, a calm port in the storm of our family dynamics. After the second IVF failed, leaving us emotionally and financially depleted, we made the difficult decision to stop. The grief was immense. We took a year to heal, to find ourselves again as a couple, not just as two people chasing a ghost. It was on our 10th wedding anniversary that Ethan brought up surrogacy. "We have 2 healthy embryos left," he said softly, taking my hands. "Our genetic children just waiting. Maybe there's another way to bring them home." It felt like a sliver of light breaking through a dark cloud. The process of finding a surrogate was daunting, but it also filled us with a new kind of hope. We were matched with Sophia, a 31-year-old mother of 2 from a few states away. She was warm, kind, and understood the weight of the gift she was offering. From our first video call, we knew she was the one. She wasn't just a carrier, she was an angel. The embryo transfer was successful on the first try. Hearing the words, "Sophia is pregnant," from our fertility clinic was the single greatest moment of my life. I collapsed into Ethan's arms, sobbing with a relief so profound it felt like every cell in my body was finally letting go of years of tension. We were going to be parents. Our baby, a little girl, was on her way. The pregnancy progressed beautifully. We flew out to see Sophia for the 20-week scan, and seeing our daughter wiggling on the screen was surreal. we felt her kick. We cried, we laughed, and we hugged Sophia so tightly, knowing words could never be enough to thank her. My mom insisted on throwing me a baby shower. I was hesitant at first. I've been to so many, each one a reminder of what I didn't have. But this was different. This was real. This was a celebration of a miracle we had fought so hard for. I finally agreed, wanting to share our joy with the people we loved. We planned it for when I was, in gestational terms, 30 weeks along. Sophia was doing great, the nursery was almost finished, and for the first time in a decade, my life felt full of promise. I invited my closest friends and family, including, of course, Olivia and Liam. Olivia seemed unusually excited about the party, which was a little strange. She kept texting me about her outfit and asking who else was coming, typical Olivia behavior, but with an odd intensity. I brushed it off, too wrapped up in my own happiness to give it much thought. I believed, naively, that even she couldn't possibly try to upstage a baby shower born from so much pain. I thought that maybe, just this once, she would let me have my moment. I was wrong. The day of the shower, surrounded by pastel decorations and the smiling faces of my loved ones, was supposed to be the culmination of a decade of hope. Instead, it became the day my world cracked open. The baby shower was perfect. My best friend, Maria, had transformed my mom's backyard into a whimsical garden wonderland. Pink and cream balloons drifted lazily in the breeze, a dessert table groaned under the weight of delicate cakes and pastries, and a mountain of beautifully wrapped gifts sat in the corner, each one a symbol of the love surrounding our little girl. I felt weightless, floating on a cloud of pure, unadulterated happiness. Ethan was by my side, his arm wrapped protectively around me, his eyes shining with the same joy that filled my heart. Our surrogate, Sophia, couldn't be there in person, but we set up a large tablet on a stand so she could join via video call. People went up to say hello, thanking her and telling her how amazing she was. She was glowing, her round belly a beautiful testament to the miracle she was carrying for us. This was our day, our baby's day. Olivia and Liam arrived fashionably late, of course. She made a grand entrance, wearing a ridiculously expensive dress that was a little too glamorous for a daytime party. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "I'm so happy for you, Scar." But her eyes were darting around the yard, assessing the crowd, taking the temperature of the room. Liam followed behind her, looking his usual, amiable self. He gave me a warm hug and handed me a large gift bag from a high-end baby boutique. "Congratulations, Scarlett," he said, his smile genuine. "You and Ethan deserve all of this and more." I felt a pang of sympathy for him. He was a good man married to a woman who treated life like a constant competition. The party continued. We played silly games, shared stories, and opened gifts. Each tiny outfit, soft blanket, and classic children's book brought fresh tears to my eyes. This was real. This was finally happening. My mom gave a touching speech about our long journey, her voice thick with emotion. Ethan spoke next, thanking everyone and especially Sophia for making our dream a reality. I stood beside him, my hand on his back, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. Then it was time to cut the cake. As everyone gathered around the dessert table, singing and laughing, Olivia clinked her glass with a fork. The sound cut through the cheerful chatter, and all eyes turned to her. "If I could have everyone's attention for just a moment," she announced, her voice filled with a practiced, saccharine sweetness. Liam looked at her, a flicker of confusion on his face. This wasn't planned. "I just want to say how incredibly thrilled I am for my big sister, Scarlett," she began, smiling directly at me. "We've all watched her go through so much, and to see her joy today is just everything." She paused for dramatic effect, placing a hand over her heart. "It's been so inspiring. In fact..." She took a deep breath, her eyes sweeping across the captive audience. She then placed her other hand on her perfectly flat stomach. "It's inspired us so much that Liam and I have some news of our own to share. We're pregnant." The air went still. For a split second, there was dead silence as everyone processed what she just said. Then, a smattering of polite, confused applause broke out. My mom's smile faltered. Ethan's arm tightened around me. I just stared at her, my own smile frozen on my face. She wasn't done. "It's a true miracle," she gushed, now pulling a very surprised-looking Liam closer to her. "We weren't even trying. It just happened. I'm only about 9 weeks along, so we weren't going to say anything, but today just felt so full of love and new beginnings, I couldn't keep it a secret any longer. We're having a baby." The focus of the entire party shifted. Aunts and cousins who had just been cooing over my baby's ultrasound pictures were now rushing to congratulate Olivia. The attention, the joy, the entire energy of the room was vacuumed away from me and directed at her. My baby shower, the celebration of my hard W. On decade-long battle, had just become the backdrop for Olivia's spontaneous pregnancy announcement. She knew exactly what she was doing. She knew about the years of negative tests, the hormonal injections that made me sick, the grief that felt like it would swallow me whole. She knew my joy was fragile, precious, and something I had waited half my life for. And she chose that exact moment to steal it to make it about her. She didn't just steal my thunder, she stole my triumph. I felt the blood drain from my face. Ethan saw it. "Are you okay?" he whispered, his voice tight with anger. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, a pathetic, jerky movement. I watched as my sister, my own flesh and blood, held court, soaking up the congratulations. She looked over at me and gave me a radiant smile, a look that said, "See, I win, I always win." She got her miracle baby easily, effortlessly, while I had to fight a war for mine, and she made sure everyone knew it. Liam looked deeply uncomfortable. He kept glancing from his beaming wife to my shell-shocked face, a look of sincere apology in his eyes. He clearly had no idea this was her plan. The rest of the party is a blur. I remember cutting the cake with a trembling hand, the sweetness tasting like ash in my mouth. I remember opening the rest of the gifts with a fake smile plastered on my face, my voice sounding distant and hollow. The joy had been snuffed out, replaced by a cold, heavy stone of betrayal in the pit of my stomach. My day, my one day, was ruined. And as Olivia left, giving me another cloying hug and telling me she couldn't wait for our babies to be best friends, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and gaping. But beneath it, a different feeling was beginning to smolder. A cold, hard, and unfamiliar rage. The days following the baby shower were a hollow echo of the joy I was supposed to be feeling. The beautiful gifts sat in the half-finished nursery, but instead of inspiring excitement, they felt like artifacts from a party that had been desecrated. I tried to push it down, to focus on our daughter, to tell myself that Olivia's toxic narcissism couldn't touch the reality of our miracle. But the betrayal had sunk its claws in deep. It wasn't just about her stealing my moment. It was the casual cruelty of it, the complete disregard for my years of pain. Ethan was furious. He wanted to call her, to call our parents, to unleash the torrent of anger that I was struggling to contain. "She can't get away with this, Scarlett," he'd say, pacing our living room. "There have to be consequences for being that deliberately cruel." "And say what, Ethan?" I'd reply, my voice flat. "That she was selfish, that she hurt my feelings, she'll just play the victim. She'll say she was so excited she couldn't help it and I'm being overly sensitive. It's her standard playbook. It won't change anything." I knew I was right. Confronting Olivia directly would be useless. She thrived on that kind of drama, so I retreated into myself, trying to rebuild the protective wall around my happiness. A week passed. Then 2. Olivia would send cheerful texts with morning sickness complaints, completely oblivious or more likely, completely indifferent to the damage she had caused. The nausea is real. Can't wait for my 12-week scan. We can compare pics." Zoxo, I would read them, my thumb hovering over the screen, before deleting the message thread entirely. About 3 weeks after the shower, Liam, Olivia's husband, sent me a text. "Hey, Scarlett, I just wanted to apologize again for what happened. Olivia's timing was inappropriate. I had no idea she was going to do that. I hope you and Ethan are doing okay, and I'm genuinely so excited for you both." I appreciated his message. He was a decent man caught in my sister's orbit. I replied with a simple, Thanks, Liam. It means a lot. We're just focusing on our little girl. That weekend, we were at my parents' house for their anniversary dinner. It was the first time we'd all be together since the shower. I was dreading it. Olivia, naturally, was in her element, talking endlessly about her pregnancy symptoms and her miracle baby. She had an app on her phone that she kept showing everyone. Look, this week the baby is the size of a raspberry. Isn't that wild? Liam sat beside her, looking weary. My parents, caught in the middle as always, tried to steer the conversation back to my baby, asking about Sophia and our plans for the nursery, but Olivia would always find a way to pivot it back to herself. During dinner, Olivia was complaining about needing new clothes. None of my jeans fit anymore. It's crazy. I've already got a tiny bump. She stood up and turned to the side, pressing her hand against her stomach. Liam pulled a gift bag from beside his chair. Well, I was going to wait, but this might help, he said, handing it to her. It was from a chic, expensive maternity boutique. All. Ivia squealed with delight and pulled out a pair of designer maternity jeans and a soft, elegant cashmere sweater. Oh, Liam, you shouldn't have, she cooed, kissing him. You are the best husband. He smiled, a little sadly, I thought. I just wanted you to be comfortable. He had given her the gift in a plain brown bag from the boutique, but he'd left the branded tissue paper with the store's logo inside. Later that evening, as we were helping my mom clear the table, Olivia left the empty gift bag and tissue paper on the dining room chair. I picked it up to throw it away. As I crumpled the black tissue paper, something fell out. It was a small, rectangular card. I assumed it was a gift receipt. Thinking Liam might want it, I picked it up to give to him. But it wasn't a receipt. It was a pharmacy card, the kind attached to a prescription bag. It had the pharmacy's name, address, and the patient's information. My eyes scanned the details. Patient, Olivia M. Medication, progesterone 200 mg vaginal suppositories. Instructions, insert one suppository twice daily. Doctor, Dr. REID, Center for Reproductive Health. Time stopped, my breath caught in my throat. I stared at the card, my mind struggling to connect the words. Dr. Reed, the Center for Reproductive Health, progesterone suppositories. It wasn't just a familiar name. It was my name. Dr. Reed was my fertility doctor. The Center for Reproductive Health was my clinic. And progesterone suppositories were the exact medication I had taken after every single one of my failed IUIs and IVF transfers to help support a potential pregnancy. It was the standard medication for someone undergoing fertility treatments. But Olivia's pregnancy was a miracle, a surprise, the result of not even trying. You don't get a prescription from a top-tier reproductive endocrinologist for a whoopsie baby. You don't get prescribed heavy-duty hormonal support for a pregnancy that just happened. My hands started to shake. I quickly folded the card and shoved it deep into my pocket, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked across the room. Olivia was laughing, showing my aunt a picture on her phone. Liam was talking to my dad about a new construction project downtown. They were all oblivious. I felt a dizzying wave of confusion and suspicion wash over me. Why would Olivia be seeing my fertility doctor? Why would she be on progesterone? The story she had so proudly, so cruelly, announced at my baby shower, the story of her effortless, miraculous conception, was a lie. And I was holding the proof in my pocket. The question wasn't just why she lied. The question that began to echo in the sudden, terrifying silence of my mind was, what else was she lying about? The drive home from my parents' house was silent. Ethan could tell something was wrong. I was rigid in the passenger seat, my hand protectively in my pocket, clutching the little pharmacy card as if it were a live grenade. Scarlett, what happened back there? You've been quiet ever since we cleaned up, he asked, his voice gentle. I waited until the garage door was closed and we were inside the safety of our own home. I took a deep breath and pulled the card from my pocket, my hand still trembling slightly. I laid it on the kitchen island under the stark pendant light. Olivia left this behind. It fell out of the gift bag from Liam. Ethan picked it up. He read it once, then twice. His face, etched with confusion at first, slowly hardened into a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. He looked from the card to me, his eyes wide. "Dr. Reed, the Center for Reproductive Health," he whispered, the name of our clinic sounding alien in our kitchen. "Progesterone? Why would she be seeing our doctor?" "Exactly," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Her miracle baby, the one that just happened." "Ethan, people who get pregnant by accident don't get prescriptions from one of the top reproductive endocrinologists in the state." We stood there in silence for a long moment, the implications hanging heavy in the air. Olivia's story wasn't just a lie, it was a carefully constructed fiction. The effortless pregnancy she had used to hurt me was anything but. She was undergoing fertility treatments. "But why would she lie?" Ethan said, shaking his head. "And why keep it a secret? We, of all people, would have understood. We could have supported her." "Because she didn't want support," I said, the cold realization beginning to crystallize. "She wanted to win. She couldn't stand that I was finally getting something she didn't have. If she had admitted she was struggling, too, it would have made us equals. Instead, she fabricated a story of effortless success to rub in my face. It was all a performance." The anger I felt was sharp and clean, but it was tangled with a deep, unsettling confusion. The lie was one thing, but the level of deception was staggering. And there was a piece missing. Liam clearly had no idea she was a fertility doctor. His surprise at her announcement was genuine, as was his gift of regular, non-maternity clothes. If he wasn't part of the lie, then how was she pulling this off? Fertility treatments are intense. There are appointments, injections, medications. How could she hide all of that from her husband? And then, a much darker thought began to form in the back of my mind. The Center for Reproductive Health didn't just handle infertility. They also had a sperm bank. They handled donor conception. "Ethan," I said slowly, my heart starting to pound again. "What if it's more than just hiding fertility treatments? What if he's not the father?" Ethan stared at me, his face pale. "Scarlett, don't, that's a huge leap." "Is it?" I challenged, my mind racing, connecting dots I hadn't even seen before. "Think about it. She lies about seeing a fertility doctor. She hides it from her own husband. She makes up a story about a miracle to one-up me at my own baby shower. This is a woman capable of incredible deception for the sake of her own ego. What if they had male factor infertility? What if Liam can't have kids and she was too proud to admit it? Maybe she used a donor and never told him." It was a monstrous thought, but it fit the bizarre, puzzle piece facts we had. It was the only scenario that explained her secrecy with Liam. The next day, my mind was consumed. I couldn't work. I couldn't focus on the nursery. I just kept replaying everything, turning the pharmacy card over and over in my hands. I had to know more. My graphic design work required me to be meticulous, to find patterns, to see the whole picture from fragmented parts. I decided to apply that same skill to my sister's life. I started with something simple. I remembered Olivia mentioning her 12-week scan was coming up. I did a quick calculation. Her announcement at my shower, where she claimed to be 9 weeks along, was exactly 3 weeks ago. So, her 12-week mark was this week. My first lead was the clinic itself. I knew their protocol. I knew their scheduling system from my own years of experience. But I couldn't just call and ask about my sister. That was a massive violation of privacy. I needed another way in. I thought about the prescription. The card had a refill date on it. It was for next Tuesday. A thought, cold and calculating, began to form in my mind. What if I was there? What if I just happened to be at the clinic on the same day? I still had a follow-up appointment I needed to schedule with Dr. Reed to officially graduate from the clinic's care now that Sophia was in her 3rd trimester. It was the perfect excuse. I called the clinic. "Hi, this is Scarlett," I said, my voice calmer than I felt. "I need to book my final consultation with Dr. Reed. Does he have any availability next Tuesday afternoon?" The receptionist tapped on her keyboard. "He does. He has a 2:30 p.m. open." Perfect, I'll take it, I said, my heart racing. Next, I did something I felt a little guilty about, but I knew it was necessary. I went onto Olivia's social media. She was a prolific poster, documenting every moment of her life. I scrolled back through the last few months. It was all there: trips with friends, glamorous dinners, photo shoots for her event planning business. On the surface, it was a perfect life, but I was looking for something else. I was looking for gaps. I was looking for the times she was offline. I cross-referenced her posts with the typical IVF cycle timeline I knew by heart: the daily injections, the frequent morning monitoring appointments. There were strange little pockets of silence. A week in early April where she posted nothing but old, throwback photos. A series of days in May where she claimed to have the flu and was stuck in bed. It all lined up. The dates corresponded perfectly with the egg retrieval and embryo transfer phases of a standard IVF cycle. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place with a horrifying jolt. I remembered a conversation from about 6 months ago. Ethan and I had gone out to dinner with Olivia and Liam. Ethan had been talking about a new building project his engineering firm was working on downtown, right next to a major medical complex. "Oh, the Harrison Medical Tower?" Olivia had said, a little too quickly. "My new gym is in that building. It's fantastic, state of the art." Liam had looked surprised. "A new gym? Since when? I thought you loved your Pilates studio." "It's just for a specialized class I'm trying," she'd said, waving her hand dismissively. "It's no big deal." At the time, it was a throwaway comment. But now, my blood ran cold. I knew for a fact there was no gym in the Harrison Medical Tower, but there was something else on the 7th floor. The Center for Reproductive Health, my clinic. She wasn't going to the gym. She was going to morning monitoring appointments, ultrasounds, blood work, all while lying to her husband, her family, ND the world. She had constructed an elaborate, airtight web of deceit, and I was about to walk right into the middle of it. The week leading up to my appointment was the longest of my life. Every text from Olivia, filled with cheerful updates about her miracle pregnancy, felt like a deliberate taunt. I responded with curt, non-committal replies, a gray rock against her waves of manufactured sunshine. Ethan could see the toll it was taking on me. The righteous anger was still there, a hot coal in my chest, but it was now overlaid with a heavy blanket of dread. What was I going to do with this information? "You don't have to do this, you know," he said one evening, finding me standing silently in the nursery, staring at the empty crib. "We can just let it go. Focus on us, on our daughter. Let Olivia live in whatever fake world she's built for herself." I turned to him, my eyes filled with a sad resolve he wasn't used to seeing. "I can't, Ethan. This isn't just about her stealing my thunder anymore. This is about Liam. He's a good man. He's sitting there, excited about a baby that might not even be his. He's living a lie, and he doesn't even know it. And she used that lie to intentionally hurt me. If I let this go, if I say nothing, what does that make me? An accomplice to her deception." He knew I was right. There was no going back. The truth was a loaded gun, and I was the one holding it. The question was when and how to fire. My initial plan was simple: confirm my suspicions. I would go to my appointment on Tuesday, and I would watch. I needed to see her there with my own eyes to make this real. The what if was tormenting me. I needed the certainty. On Tuesday, I dressed carefully. I chose nondescript clothing, dark jeans, a simple gray sweater, and a scarf. I didn't want to be noticed. I arrived at the Harrison Medical Tower 15 minutes early, my stomach in knots. The elevator ride up to the 7th floor felt like an ascent to a final judgment. The waiting room of the Center for Reproductive Health was painfully familiar. The same soft beige chairs, the same hopeful, anxious faces, the same muted art on the walls. I had spent countless hours of my life in this room, my heart oscillating between hope and despair. Today, I was here as a ghost. I checked in and took a seat in the corner, partially hidden behind a large potted plant, and pretended to scroll through my phone. My eyes scanned every person who walked in. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. My appointment time of 2:30 came and went. A nurse called my name, and I had to tell her I needed a few more minutes. My heart pounded with a frantic rhythm. What if I was wrong? What if this was all some giant, paranoid delusion? And then the door opened, and she walked in. It was Olivia. She was wearing leggings and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, a far cry from her usual glamorous self. She looked tired and stressed. She walked directly to the pharmacy window at the back of the clinic, not even glancing at the main waiting area. She was trying to be invisible. I watched, my body frozen, as she spoke quietly to the pharmacist, handed over her credit card, and received a small white paper bag. The prescription refill. The proof. She turned to leave, and for a terrifying second, her eyes swept the room and met mine. There was a flicker of shock, of pure, unadulterated panic on her face. Then it was gone, replaced by a mask of casual surprise. She forced a smile and started walking toward me. "Scarlett, oh my God, what are you doing here?" she said, her voice a little too high-pitched. "I had my final follow-up with Dr. Reed," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. "What about you?" The question hung in the air between us. Her eyes darted around, looking for an escape. "Oh, you know," she said vaguely, clutching the white bag. "Just picking something up for a friend." A friend, the lie was so blatant, so insulting, it was almost laughable. We stood there for a second in the charged silence of the waiting room. I didn't challenge her. I just held her gaze, my expression unreadable. I let her see that I knew. I saw the fear in her eyes before she broke contact. "Well, gotta run, so crazy seeing you here, talk soon," she chirped before practically fleeing the clinic. I sat back down, my body trembling with the aftershock of the confrontation. It was all true, everything. The secret treatments, the lies, the deception. Seeing her there, seeing the panic in her eyes, solidified my resolve. Liam didn't deserve this. No one did. That night, I told Ethan what happened. We sat at our kitchen island, the same spot where we had first looked at the pharmacy card, and we made a plan. It wasn't a plan for petty revenge. It wasn't about humiliating Olivia for what she did at the shower. It was about justice. It was about the truth. Liam deserved to know what was going on in his end marriage and what was happening with the child he believed was his. The plan had to be precise. It had to be undeniable. I couldn't just tell Liam my suspicions. Olivia would twist it, paint me as a jealous, crazy sister. I needed irrefutable proof. My mind went back to the clinic. Olivia had used my doctor, my clinic. It was a place I knew intimately. The clinic, for privacy reasons, assigned every patient a unique ID number. That number was on every piece of paperwork, every bill, every prescription. The next part of my plan felt devious, but I saw no other way. I knew Olivia was careless. Her entire life was a whirlwind of her own creation, and she often left a trail of chaos in her wake. I waited another week, letting things settle. Then I called my mom. "Hey, Mom," I said, my tone casual. "I know this is random, but I'm trying to find a receipt for an old medical expense for our taxes. I think I might have accidentally left a folder of papers at your house after the anniversary dinner. It's a plain manila folder. Could you look in the study for me?" As I had hoped, my mom found the folder. "Oh, and honey," she said, "Olivia left some of her mail here, too. I'll just put it all in one big envelope and send it over to you. You can give her things to her next time you see her." It was a long shot, but it was the only shot I had. When the envelope arrived 2 days later, I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was my folder, and tucked behind it were 3 envelopes addressed to Olivia. 2 were junk mail. The third was a bill. From the Center for Reproductive Health. My heart stopped. I carefully opened the letter. It was an itemized bill for 1 cycle of in vitro fertilization with intracytoplasmic sperm injection, ICSI. And at the top of the page, next to her name, was her patient ID number. But that wasn't the bombshell. The bombshell was a line item charge near the bottom of the page, a charge I recognized from my own research into donor options years ago. Cryobank specimen acquisition fee, $1,250. There it was, in black and white, irrefutable. She had used donor sperm. The baby Liam was so excited to meet. The miracle that Olivia had announced to the world was not his biological child. And this bill was the proof that she had done it all behind his back. I photocopied the bill. I put the original back in its envelope, sealed it, and placed it on my counter. The plan was no longer about confirming the truth. The plan was now about revealing it, and I knew exactly when and where it needed to happen. Olivia had chosen my sacred space to unleash her lie. I would choose a neutral ground, a family dinner she couldn't escape from, to unveil the truth. The storm was coming, and I was no longer afraid of the rain. The following Sunday, my parents hosted their weekly family dinner. It was a tradition that had been upheld for as long as I could remember, a constant in our lives. But tonight, it felt different. It felt like the setting for a final act. Ethan and I arrived, and the atmosphere was already thick with a strange tension. Olivia and Liam were there, and Olivia was avoiding my gaze, her chatter with our mom feeling forced and brittle. She knew I had seen her at the clinic. She was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Liam, on the other hand, was the picture of an excited father-to-be. He was talking to my dad about baby-proofing his house and plans for converting their spare room into a nursery. "I'm even reading up on sleep training," he said with a proud, happy smile. "I want to be prepared." Every word he said was a knife in my gut. The sight of his pure, unadulterated joy, knowing the lie it was built upon, was unbearable. My resolve hardened. This was not about revenge. This was a rescue mission. We sat down for dinner. The conversation was stilted. I was quiet, pushing food around my plate. Ethan sat beside me, a silent, solid presence. Olivia kept shooting me nervous, sideways glances. Finally, my mom, ever the peacemaker, tried to lighten the mood. "So, Olivia," she said brightly, "have you two thought of any names yet?" Olivia lit up, seizing the opportunity to take center stage. "Oh, we have. If it's a girl, we're thinking Serafina, and for a boy, Sebastian." She beamed at Liam. "What do you think?" Liam smiled. "I love them, both of them." That was my opening. I put my fork down, the clink of metal on ceramic sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden quiet. "They're beautiful names," I said, my voice calm and even. All eyes turned to me. "But have you thought about what you're going to tell Sebastian or Serafina about their donor?" Silence, absolute deafening silence. Liam looked at me, his brow furrowed in utter confusion. "Donor? What are you talking about, Scarlett?" Olivia's face went white as a sheet. "Scarlett, shut up," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do, Olivia," I said, turning my full attention to her. I kept my voice level, stripping it of emotion, making it impossible for her to paint me as hysterical. "I know all about your appointments at the Center for Reproductive Health. My appointments, actually, with my doctor. I also know about the progesterone you're taking, and I know about the IVF cycle you hid from everyone." Liam's head snapped toward his wife. "IVF? What is she talking about, Olivia? You told me it just happened." "She's lying," Olivia shrieked, her eyes wide with panic. "She's jealous. She's making it all up because she's bitter that I got pregnant so easily and she couldn't." It was her final, desperate play to weaponize my infertility against me one last time. But I was ready. "Am I?" I asked softly. I reached into my purse and pulled out a single, folded piece of paper. The photocopy of the bill. I didn't hand it to Liam. I slid it across the table to my father. "This came to your house by mistake, Mom. It's a bill for Olivia, from the clinic." My dad picked it up. He unfolded it, his face grim as he read. My mom leaned over his shoulder, her hand flying to her mouth, a horrified gasp escaping her lips. Liam stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Let me see that," he demanded, his voice trembling. My dad handed him the paper. Liam's eyes scanned the page, his face crumbling with each line item he read. He saw the charge for IVF. He saw the charge for ICSI. And then he saw the final, devastating line. "Cryobank specimen acquisition fee." He looked up from the paper. his eyes hollow with a pain so profound it seemed to suck the air out of the room. He stared at his wife, the woman he loved, the woman carrying a child he thought was his. "Donor sperm," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You used a donor without telling me." Olivia started to sob, her carefully constructed world shattering around her. "I was going to tell you," she cried. I didn't know how." "When?" Liam shot back, his voice rising with anguish and betrayal. "When were you going to tell me? After the baby was born, on his 18th birthday. When were you planning on telling me that our child wasn't mine?" "We couldn't get pregnant," she sobbed, her explanation a torrent of panicked excuses. "We tried for a year. We saw a doctor. He said your numbers were low, that it would be almost impossible. I didn't want you to feel bad. I didn't want you to feel like less of a man." "Feel like less of a man?" Liam's laugh was a broken, horrifying sound. "You made a unilateral decision about our family, our life, our child. You lied to my face every single day. You let me get excited, plan a future, love a baby that you created with a stranger, because you didn't want me to feel bad. You didn't do this for me, Olivia. You did this for you. You couldn't handle the imperfection of it. Just like you couldn't handle your sister having something you didn't." He looked at me then, his eyes filled not with anger, but with a dawning, devastating understanding. "The baby shower," he said quietly. "That's what that was about. It was all a lie, all of it." He dropped the bill on the table. He looked at Olivia one last time, his face a mask of utter disgust and heartbreak. "We're done," he said, the words flat and final. "Done." He turned and walked out of the dining room, out of the house, and out of her life. The front door clicked shut behind him, the sound echoing the finality of his words. Olivia collapsed into her chair, her sobs now turning into guttural wails of despair. My parents were in shock, staring at the empty doorway, then at their weeping daughter, then at me. I stood up, my own legs feeling unsteady. I looked at Olivia, not with triumph, not with hatred, but with a profound and empty sadness. She had destroyed everything, her marriage, her relationship with her husband, the trust of her family, all for the sake of her own ego. She had tried to steal my joy, and in the process, she had incinerated her own. "I didn't want this, Olivia," I said quietly. "I just wanted you to tell the truth." Ethan came to my side, his hand finding mine. "Let's go home, Scarlett," he said softly. We walked out of the house, leaving the wreckage behind. The night air was cool and clean. As we drove away, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt quiet. The storm had passed, and now we had to live in the world it had left behind. The aftermath was a silent, emotional wasteland. My parents were caught in an impossible position, grieving the implosion of one daughter's life while trying to support the other. They were angry with Olivia for the depth of her deception, but she was still their child, now alone, pregnant, and facing a divorce. Liam, true to his word, filed immediately. He communicated only through his lawyer. He was, as his lawyer stated, relinquishing all parental rights and responsibilities for a child that was not his. He was erasing himself from the Nerati. Olivia had created, I couldn't blame him. Olivia left a string of furious, weeping voicemails on my phone, calling me a monster, a home wrecker, a jealous demon who had ruined her life. I never listened to them more than once. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Our relationship, already fractured, was now a pile of dust. In the midst of the family fallout, something beautiful happened. 3 weeks after that disastrous dinner, I got a call in the middle of the night. It was Sophia. Her water had broken. She was in labor. Ethan and I threw our pre-packed bags in the car and drove through the night, breaking every speed limit. We arrived at the hospital just as the sun was rising, our hearts pounding with an excitement so pure and powerful it eclipsed all the recent darkness. We were there, holding Sophia's hands, coaching her, crying with her. And at 8:14 in the morning, our daughter, Lily, was born. They placed her on my chest, this tiny, perfect, screaming little person we had waited a decade for. I looked at her scrunched-up face, her tuft of dark hair, her impossibly small fingers that curled around mine, and the world fell away. The years of pain, the anger, the betrayal, It all dissolved in the overwhelming tidal wave of love I felt for my child. Ethan was beside me, tears streaming down his face as he kissed my forehead and then Lily's. We were a family. Finally. The first few months of Lily's life were a blur of sleepless nights, endless feedings, and a joy so profound it was almost painful. She was our entire world. We brought her home to the nursery that was no longer just a room of hopeful objects, but a space filled with her life, her sounds, her presence. We kept in close contact with Sophia, who became a cherished part of our extended family. She was Aunt Sophia, a real-life angel who had given us the greatest gift imaginable. As for Olivia, I heard through my mother that she had given birth to a baby boy, whom she named Alex, not Sebastian. She had moved into a small apartment and was trying to piece her life back together as a single mother. My parents helped her, as parents do, but the rift in our family was deep and likely permanent. I sent a simple gift for the baby, a blanket and a check, via my mother. I received no acknowledgement. About a year after Lily was born, I was at a park with her, pushing her on the baby swings. It was a bright, sunny afternoon. I looked up and saw a familiar figure on the other side of the playground. It was Liam. He was with a woman and they were laughing, watching a toddler stumble happily across the grass. He looked different. He looked lighter. He looked happy. Our eyes met across the playground. There was no anger in his gaze, no lingering bitterness. He gave me a small, sad smile and a brief, almost imperceptible nod. It was a nod of acknowledgement, of understanding. A silent thank you. I nodded back. Then he turned his attention back to his new life, and I turned mine back to my daughter, whose delighted giggles were the only sound that mattered. My relationship with my sister is gone. Perhaps one day, for the sake of our children, a quiet, civil truce can be reached. But the trust, the love, the bond that should have been there was broken by her choices, not by my reaction to them. She built her house on a foundation of lies, and I simply held up a mirror and showed her the cracks. She was the one who swung the sledgehammer. I don't regret what I did. I regret that it was necessary. I revealed a painful truth not to destroy her, but to save an innocent man from a lifetime of deception. My revenge wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet and factual. It was the simple, devastating act of turning on a light in a very dark room. Now my life is filled with light. It's the light of my husband's love, the bright, shining joy of my daughter's smile. Our journey was long and scarred with pain, but we made it through. We built our family not on lies or competition, but on love, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to each other. And as I push Lily on the swing, higher and higher, I know that her laughter, this piece, this hard-won, beautiful life, was the only victory that ever truly mattered.